New World Jewry. It's by S.B. Liebman and the American Jewish Historical Society. He wrote about those who owned and manned the ships, the perpetrators of this mass human cruelty and murder. Quote, "They came with ships carrying African blacks to be sold as slaves. The traffic in slaves was a royal monopoly, and the Jews were often appointed as agents for the crown in their sale. They, the Jews, were the largest ship chandlers in the entire Caribbean region, where the shipping business was mainly a Jewish enterprise. The ships were not only owned by Jews, but were manned by Jewish crews and sailed under the command of Jewish captains."
Was known for slaves to sing Negro spiritual songs such as Kumbaya. Slaves who were brought from West Africa was known to sing the song in South Carolina and Georgia. Kumbaya is said to mean come by here in English, but I will tell you the real spiritual meaning behind these words. The name of the God of the Bible in Hebrew is originally called Yahuwah. The short form of this name is called
Yahweh,
which is where we get the phrase hallelujah from, which means praise be to Yah. Also, every prophet mentioned in the Bible had the short form of God's name mentioned in their own names originally in Hebrew, including the Messiah, Yeshua, before they was given their new names pronounced in English. Black slaves were getting whipped and forced to work long hours on the plantations. They was
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary.
Thought I'd go and have a look at Jewish literature to see what they say about their origins. And here we see three quotes. And the first is in the 1925 Jewish Encyclopedia, which says that Esau, Edom, is modern Jewry. And of course this is contrary to what most people believe today, which is that the Jews are God's chosen people because they are the Israelites. But here the Jewish literature is saying that they are actually from the tribe of Edom, not the tribe of Israel. In the Jewish Almanac in 1980 it says, strictly speaking, it is incorrect to call an ancient Israelite a Jew or to call a contemporary Jew an Israelite or Hebrew. And that's because, truthfully speaking, they're not the Hebrews or Israelites, they're really the Edomites. And also we see here in the Encyclopedia Judaica that Edomite Jews began to call themselves Hebrews and Israelites in 1860.
New World Jewry. It's by S.B. Liebman and the American Jewish Historical Society. He wrote.
and they only claim to be the people after you was well in slavery, well, you was well stripped of your identity, well, you was well locked into that Christianity, well, you know.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me. And one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, No. He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're
He's about to say the whitest thing ever.
going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we got a good military and we can take down governments." And
That's the whitest thing ever said. The whitest thing, a person could say.
He said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran." The truth is about the Middle East is, had there been no oil there, it would be like Africa. Nobody is threatening to intervene in Africa. The problem is the opposite. We keep asking for people to intervene and stop it. And there's no question that the presence of petroleum throughout the region has sparked great power involvement. Whether that was the specific motivation for the coup or not, I can't tell you. But there's always been this attitude that somehow we could intervene and use force in the region.
Thought I'd go and have a look at Jewish literature to see what they say.
Look closely at the crowd and you'll see it. The letter Q on signs and on shirts at President Trump's rallies. The Q is short for QAnon, a far-right online conspiracy theory whose followers believe Trump is leading a covert effort against dark forces inside the U.S. government.
It is a somewhat fragmentary set of conspiracy theories that revolve around notions that Donald Trump will save the United States from various existing conspiracies.
While QAnon has become tied to the president, it has also caught the attention of the FBI, along with a growing number of other fringe theories. In an internal memo, the Bureau warns some of those conspiracy theories will likely motivate some domestic extremists to commit criminal, sometimes violent activity, and could encourage the targeting of specific people, places, and organizations. It's already happened. Last summer, a QAnon supporter barricaded himself inside.
Imagine waking up to a world where airlines are grounded, banks are paralyzed, and media outlets are silenced, all due to a massive cyber attack. This isn't a plot from a sci-fi movie, it's our reality. In July 2024, a colossal IT failure wreaked havoc across the globe. affecting airlines, financial institutions, and broadcasting networks. The official explanation points to a faulty software update in a widely used antivirus program. But is that the whole story? Some believe this was a test, an elite-driven experiment to expose our digital dependence. Others see it as the start of a larger plan to destabilize economies and societies. A resurfaced video from the World Economic Forum talks about a cyber pandemic with impacts as severe as COVID-19. Is this just a coincidence or a warning? What do you think? Random failure or hidden agenda?
Look closely at the crowd and you'll see it.
Like, I'm kind of conflicted about Trump, like, with his stance on Gaza, right? To me, that's like...
I totally disagree with him on it. It's hard to reconcile it in many ways. It's hard to reconcile because I see so much hypocrisy in terms of when we say America first, for whatever reason, we have this magic carve out. And you cannot pretend that that's not because AIPAC spends $100 million in our election. And this gets back to what we were talking about, whether it's Big Pharma, whether it's Israel, everyone's for sale in DC. And so I have been very disappointed with Trump on his perspectives about Gaza. I have been disappointed, by the way, he's the last person I'm disappointed with, because I've been disappointed, as we saw all last year, with the conservatives, people that say they're Christians, who are condoning this on the basis of what? Like, you're saying, oh, well, they're Muslims, so who cares? And that gets into our programming, which I've spoken about in my podcast, of this 9/11 programming, where we just don't see Muslims as like human life. And to me, to speak about Gaza and talking about casinos and hotels, and these people just lost their entire families. It's so far removed from humanity, and I think it's wrong. And I'm tired of America being used as Israel's piggyback. For whatever reason, everyone can critique every other country for taking money from us, and then there's just everyone's blind when it comes to Israel. And obviously, I paid a very heavy price for saying that last year, but I don't care, because I am truly someone whose values have never been up for sale. Like, I don't care. I will burn everything to the ground and rebuild it. I have to be able to like sleep at night, and to see.
Brakata Yahweh, Brakta Yahushai, Brakta Yahweh, Brakta Yahushai, Call Haloim, Yahweh Bahashem, Yahushai Bahashem Rakatas. It's an additional pistol to the 12 tribes of Israel. Numbers 24:20. And when he looked on Amalek, he took up his parable and said, Amalek is the first of the nations, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever.
Those Palestinian children, and the images are seared into my brain. The screaming, the crying, the bleeding, the stuff that we saw on X for the first time, largely thanks to Elon freeing the bird, and really realizing how much we had been lied to about what was happening in that region. I just, it was very easy for me to say, take whatever you have to take from me. I have to be on like the human side of things.
I think it's become, both sides of the aisle now just see that human people just feel like that it's just wrong.
Of course.
What's happened is wrong. Like, probably a year ago, people were afraid to even say that. And now it is what everybody is saying. Like, even Piers Morgan is saying it on his show now. Like, people are saying it's obvious that you can't go and annihilate and genocide this culture and make them disappear. And then Trump to come on top of it and say you're going to go on a lazy river where there's bodies of, like, who could even go to that?
And what's so crazy is the mainstream media thinking that we're so stupid that they're going to condition us to believe that to not support the ethnic cleansing, they're then going to mine our like preconditioned beliefs about the Holocaust and be like, oh, well, a Jewish person died. So if you don't agree with what we're doing over here, then you're a person that wants more Jewish people to die. It's like, this is an evil way to try to socially engineer what you want, because actually it's precisely because of what I learned growing up about Holocaust and ethnic cleansings that I do not support what the state of Israel is doing.
Imagine waking up to...
Like, I'm kind of conflicted about Trump, like, with his
passing. I've said this a bunch, but it needs to be repeated because some people have never figured it out. And those who do know it, it's nice to just kind of sharpen the tools and understand what's going on. Talking about patterns in banking is considered anti-Semitism, according to the rules. Talking about patterns in media ownership, regardless of how true it is or not, is considered
Proverbs 22:7. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. So you're not even allowed to talk about, you're not allowed to talk about you being a debt slave to any nation. No, you're not allowed to talk about being a debt slave to a literal slave to a specific nation.
Anti-Semitism. Saying that a certain group of people are influencing politicians is anti-Semitism. That's why when you say George Soros is funding, prosecutors, they call you anti-Semitic. If you say George Soros is doing this, the US government, the State Department, look this article up. They said that India was being anti-Semitic because they were sharing cartoons of George Soros puppeting politicians. So the US State Department is telling pro-Israel India that they're anti-Semitic because they're talking about George Soros. And you might say, but anomaly, I watch Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro and Fox News, and that's not what anti-Semitism means to me. That's because you're being tricked into not knowing the actual definition that's being passed into legislation. To you, talking about George Soros is not anti-Semitism, but according to the official definition that's being passed through American legislation, it actually is anti-Semitism. And every single day, Republicans that cry anti-Semitism break the anti-Semitism.
There's a quote. If you want to know who rules over you, just look for who you are not allowed to criticize.
Hate speech rules that are being passed into government and used to now police speech in multiple categories of universities and more. One of the rules says you can't suppose that an American citizen has dual loyalty to Israel. even though all of the Republicans demand that people do have dual loyalty to Israel. They basically shame you and say you hate this entire group of people if you don't have loyalty to Israel, yet they pass a hate speech law that says that you're not allowed to say that somebody has loyalty to Israel. So Jonathan Pollard, I brought him up a lot because he flew back to Israel on Trump's biggest donor's jet, the Adelson jet. That's how the foreign spy flew back, on Trump's donor's jet. And that doesn't weird anybody out now. That's just totally normal. Hey, a foreign spy. Imagine if there was a big Chinese donor that gave hundreds of millions of dollars to the Democratic Party and a Chinese spy flew home on the Chinese donor's jet. Don't you think everybody would cover it? Yeah, when that happens with Trump and Israel, just nobody notices and doesn't care. And anybody talking about it is anti-Semitism, of course. But in general, Jonathan Pollard stole American secrets and damaged America. Obviously, it's anti-Semitism if you talk about it or
not. Ezekiel 36:2. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh thy power, because thine enemy has said against you, aha, aha, you hear, aha, you know, the Lord, another identifier, just in that one word alone. Even the ancient places, Jerusalem is the mother of us all, is in our possession.
Notice, but also it would be anti-Semitic to say that he has loyalty to Israel, because when he was an American citizen, it's anti-Semitism to be like, I think that guy might have dual loyalty, even though he's stealing American secrets. According to the definition of anti-Semitism, it is anti-Semitic to say that. Talking about who killed Jesus in the Bible, even though the Bible talks about it a lot, that's anti-Semitism. So now parts of the Bible are deemed anti-Semitic hate speech according to these rules. There's no reason for me to go on because I listed the craziest of the rules, but a lot of the rules are that way. Why, if you're a First Amendment advocate and you don't believe in hate speech, would you be passing legislation with that definition in it? For those asking, mostly on my Facebook page, because Facebook's 10 years behind on this topic, why I care about this topic so much, I just told you why. I've been doing my job for 5, 6, 7 years. I got blacklisted for talking about the hate speech laws. I got smeared by the press for talking about anything that has to do with Israel.
Even though it does sound scary, and rejoice, but brothers aren't going to preach this gospel forever, or we're not going to harp on the beginning part of the gospel forever, and say, oh, the good news coming. No, the good news is going to come, and then there's going to come to a time where we're only prophesying good things for Israel, you know therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come on down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he have a short time. So it's truly a beautiful thing. It's going to bring, make all our hardcore afflictions right now look like nothing. But it's just a short time because the narrative has lost. See, the mainstream, TikTok destroyed. That's why they got to get rid of TikTok. Has destroyed their narrative. It's irreparable. It's irreparable. Irreparable? I don't know. I don't think that's the right word. But
call you an anti-Semite as soon as you notice what's going on. It's annoying. It's the reason everybody feels the way they feel about it. People like Candace Owens and stuff. People probably don't even know, but behind the scenes, like, you only see so much. Do you know how many times people have been called anti-Semitic and people have run around trying to blacklist people from certain events? I know people that I'm not even going to speak about publicly.
Global elite declares war on dangerous anti who must be stripped of human rights. Must be stripped. Who must be stripped of human rights. Global elites have declared open war on the so-called anti, who they argue must be stripped of human rights in the most disturbing escalation of their campaign in medical, medical calling since the mRNA rollout in 2021. This came out, June 5th, 2024. According to the World Health Organization, insiders of the so-called anti are threatened. Agenda 2030 and the elite vision of the future for humanity must involve mandatory mass food. Anyone who continues to defy the elite will have their basic human rights stripped under the new pandemic treaty that the WHO are currently boasting is only months away from passing. We are living in critical times. Information in this broadcast is vital to understand the end game for the elites and the technocrats' plan to dehumanize the human race. Before we delve into skip, according to the WHO boss Tredos Ed, you know, Ethiopian diplomat of public health researcher, the general director of the World Health Organization. He's the first African to become the director of the African Union. You know, it makes sense. Um, uh, you'd be seeing Kush be working in the medical field, and they was going as just as hard as Eve, trying to get you to get the that boost. But these are the only institutions where they can make more money than men. So of course, these women are gonna harp in with whatever sacrifice that they have to give. Tedas globalist organization must receive most of its funding from Bill Gates, and he has become so arrogant that he has already started celebrating the plan of implement the plan to implement medical genocide. According to Tedos, the unjust are public enemy number one because they create chaos and need to be taught a lesson by the global elite. Arguing that the elite have science on their side, Tedros says the elite did not go hard enough against the unjust during the pandemic. Firing people from their jobs, public shaming, banning them from public places, hardcore gaslighting was not enough, according to Tedros, who says that the consequences of defying the elite must be more aggressive. You can get into that if you want. Yeah. Top WEF official dangerous sea theories must be eliminated according to the top of the WEF official has a top WEF official has called for so-called sea theories to be banned from accessing the internet due to their dangerous belief that the global cabal of elites control the world. So, if you think that you're done, you've all know Harari, which is he's named after a son of Esau, Jabal, who is Klaus Schwab's right-hand man. Don't be surprised he popping him. Condemn the theory that satellite elite billionaires and globalists control the world as a anti-sem and dangerous. So you don't even use. So that's what goes to show you. It's not even that you just can't say that this race controls the world. If you say a shadowy figure of elite billionaires and globalists control the world, that's anti-Sem. You're if you just say that general statement, not including any race, they'll say, "Oh, you're talking about our people." So, uh, calls out themselves during the appearance of Lex Friedman podcast. Harari pointed out the world is too complex for powerful people to control it. Um, man, I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but there's a perfect short to go exposing that he's not even willing to conceive. He's not even willing
Can we
to.
talk a little bit about evil?
Sure.
He's not even willing to conceive that there is a cabal of small, like he's not even going to deal with that idea. So hopefully I can find that. Oh,
Come see us on tour. We're going to be in Baltimore, Hartford, Connecticut. So Lex Friedman, I don't know him. He's repeated every lie about the Ukraine war. It's like listening to Anthony Blinken or Joe Biden talk about the Ukraine war, listening to Lex talk about it. And now Tim Dillon is going to run into a similar thing.
They had an operation that was based on entrapping, blackmailing, gaining leverage over very powerful politicians.
So do you think there was an intelligence connection to all of this?
Mossad.
I'm uncomfortable with the intelligent connection.
We're uncomfortable with it, but he means that he's uncomfortable accepting that that's a fact. That Jeffrey Epstein was an intelligence operation. So that's what just goes to show you. You can have all the book smarts in the world, just like Sam Harris, and it doesn't matter. That doesn't mean that you have an intelligent position on anything. A lot of people, and I didn't clip them, but a lot of people on Twitter were saying that's because Lex Friedman works for Mossad. In fact, the headline of this is Tim Dillon presses Mossad agent on Epstein's connection to Israel. Do you think there was an intelligence connection between this pedophile and all the most powerful people in the world?
There was a book about Ghislaine's father called Israel's Super Spy.
Yeah, so the father is definitely shady.
Okay, so the father's in the Mossad.
I like how he even says he can't even admit that Ghislaine Maxwell's father was Mossad. Well, he's shady. No, he worked for Mossad.
No, I don't know about the Mossad thing.
You don't know about that?
I don't know about the Mossad thing. So, and this is like a brainiac guy. They're just like Sam Harris. Their ability to decipher facts and have an intelligent theory on something that has nothing to do with how many books they've read or how much they know about particles and electrons and protons. It has nothing to do with it.
What is the depth of the connection?
Well, there's a book about it. I mean,
I have a lot of books about a lot of stuff to show you.
Well, but written by Seymour Hersh, America's greatest Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. What would you say it is? If it's not an intelligence blackmail operation, what would you?
If it's not an intelligent black ops operation, what would you say it is? I would say it's just a coincidence of a bad person, an isolated incident. You know, it's a no larger implication of the systems in power and who controls it, and not being attached to a specific race, or let's take that out, a specific very evil organization, historically evil organization of a political force, a political agency of a specific country. He won't even say that.
Say that it could be.
I would say it's one charismatic person, Jeffrey Epstein, that...
You know, when I'm talking to my friend, talking about, Jeffrey Epstein, it's just like, how did he get his money? Like, you don't just go from community college, I don't know if he graduated or he dropped out. You don't go from community college to managing like billion-dollar hedge funds without no story, But like with it's just he was a CIA agent. This is obviously a collaboration between the CIA. I mean, the CIA. Bro, let's take that. It's Mossad. Probably already took over the CIA. Probably got blackmail and all them, and the CIA probably Mossad, leading the CIA to Mossad's benefit. I mean, I didn't know or doubt to the extent that I know now, but how Jake be. Jake is more thirsty for the world than Esau. Jake is less like the Israelites than the Edomites, man, because the Edomites will accept this truth, man. And Jake is just how Jake view things is what implicates my dreams. And would they really like to think that there's a pedophile ring? They just ignore to go get their dreams and work on their dreams and buy the house. No, Jake is evil. You gotta vote for your own genocide so you could benefit as American. So as long as I have a house, fuck all the people of my race dying because of the votes that the things that I vote for. And guess what? It's just like, man, don't even be around Jake, man. It's really just better not to be around people in the world, Like you be around them, sometimes you need to recharge, but then it's just like I'd rather be alone. Type shit.
And we've given Lex a hard time. We've ribbed him when he gave him the business. we gave him the business when he had on the head of Pfizer on his show, and
so that man says, Yuval Noah Harari went on his show, and then he said that the world was too complex to to control. But the world is the world more complex than creation and the human anatomy, and these people really think they can play God, you know, are foolish. The global cabal theory has many variations, but basically a small group of people, a cabal, secretly control everything in the world, already declared. Uh, all wars, all revolutions, all epidemics, everything that happens is controlled by a small group of people who are, of course, evil and have bad intentions. This is very well. This is a very well known story, not news. It's been there for thousands of years. It is very attractive because, first of all, it's simple. People don't need to understand everything that happens in the world. They just need to understand one thing. That's the truth. You know, in our we just all we need to know is one thing to understand everything. See, when we focus on everything, one truth, man. We focus on this book and get that understanding, man. It allows you to process everything. It's like in this truth, you can do anything once you know. But it's like you could do anything, but you know, the Bible's gonna show the importance of what you need to focus on if you have the right spirit. You know, and the war in Ukraine, is that not a cabal? Did they not have a peace agreement before this? Did they not act like in 2014, like this war did not happen, and they basically gave this war a soft launch with American support? And basically, the only difference between 2014 and I think 2022 was the support from the Ukraine war went from the UK to America, I believe. Yeah, we know that there's at least a very powerful fringe group of a sect of the Azov Battalion that are such hard Nazis. Unless the Azov Battalion is the name of the Nazis, but they're the military. There's such a there's a at least a group of really hardcore Nazis. You know, it's like when Trudeau was going, when they brought out a Ukrainian soldier that fought against the Russians, that he was a Nazi. And then they showed you when there was the Trump derangement syndrome. Fuck Trump. There's a lot not to like about Trump, but the reasons not to like Trump is the same in every other president. The Trump derangement syndrome is a death disease. It's a death illness. You know. Uh, they already came to an agreement where Ukraine didn't have to lose any land, but when you had threatened from the Nazis, and all America does want to do is to support the shelling and the genocide of the Ukrainian the ethnic Russians, whether it's attacking Russia or they're attacking the ethnic Russians, or they're cutting out the water, all to provoke Russia to start World War III, so they could blame it on them. But we all know through the spirit, through prophecy, it will happen to uh, Iran and Israel. So they can hit Putin with all that propaganda, all the Hitler propaganda. Israeli-Palestine conflict, which we already know. We already know how that land was got through deceit and robbery, and how that was set up by the bankers, and you know, and we know that they have no actual claim to that land. You know, 5G technology. I mean, who else could be the source of that? CV-19. Everything has been exposed. It was lab created. Even people who call you a theorist will openly admit that it was created in a lab, and that they will see the patents for they've seen the patents for the juice many years later. Do they hit you with an apology? Not even for themselves, not even for you, but for themselves. No, so that's why, because they don't grow, and that's why they're just caught in another delusion. Some people think, oh, it's good that they created it, but they created the juice to fix the problem that they solved. So either way, they trust more in Esau after this. It's simple. The global cabal, they do it all. He warned these crises were often blamed of the small hats or the Freemasons, but we see them in all places of power, and they throwing up their symbols. It's created this utopian fantasy, or it should be dystopia, or no, utopia also goes into no place, where if we only get rid of the small cabal, we will solve all problems of the world. Salvation, he pointed out, and it really would be. You know, we would just go back to normal power balances. You know, we do simple struggles. It's simple, very attractive, and that's why so many people believe it. Harari compared the sinister cabal to Nazism. He claimed that Nazism also believed that there was cabal trying to control. You know, basically the Nazi ideal was that the Jews control the world, and he continued, so we get rid of the Jews to solve all the world's problems. You know, people like Canada said, they just gonna keep harping on that when they, at best, they supported their own genocide. You know, as an excuse to be able to steal, the land, because they had the opportunity to build land anywhere else, but the pride of Esau. Harari tended to downplay the role of left in shaping the world policies. Is shameless. The left and Harari regularly boast about their plans to control the world, literally. As the People's Voice reporter, Harari has previously admitted that the left are creating technological Noah Ark on Earth that only the beneficial to the elites. And he was basically saying, if you don't put the chip in you, you're done. You're irrelevant to society. During a discussion of the Warwick Economic Summit, he bragged that the world elites would be able to use their immense power to escape a global mass extinction event that they themselves will create as a part of the depopulation agenda. You know?
Just basically gave him a tongue bath. It was kind of funny. It was funny. That's why we made fun of it. And
You tell these man, it's like when these people say, "Oh no, you gotta vote." I'm telling you, who am I gonna vote for? Which side of Israel? Since the Trump administration has since taking office, the Trump administration has already approved $12 billion in major FML FMS sales to Israel. You know these men, bro. So it's like, bro, you could only support for thing you could vote for is who support Israel. Um,
so here, I don't know who clipped this video, but I wish I would give them props if I remembered or if I knew. But here, watch Tim Dillon starts to talk about Jeffrey Epstein with Lex Friedman, and watch, this is funny.
They had an operation.
2 Corinthians 4:4, in whom the God of this world had blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Hamashiach, whose image is who is the image of that power, shall shine unto them. You know? So these small hearts have created a world where you cannot that the world is blocked from the glory of Yahweh Hamashiach. Yahweh Shai. Forgive me if I said Yahweh Shai Hamashiach, you know?
That was based on
From Yahweh Shai.
entrapping, blackmailing, gaining leverage over very powerful politicians.
So do you think there was an intelligence connection to all of this?
Mossad. It was absolutely a Mossad. Do you think I'm wrong about anything I've said?
Well, I'm uncomfortable with the intelligent connection.
Why?
I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, we all are. By the way, all of us are uncomfortable.
We're uncomfortable with it, but he means that he's uncomfortable accepting that that's a fact. That Jeffrey Epstein was an intelligence operation. So that's what just goes to show you. You can have all the book smarts in the world, just like Sam Harris, and it doesn't matter. That doesn't mean that you have an intelligent position on anything.
Speak about publicly that have tried to stop me from going on Roseanne Barr's podcast. Luckily, I'm friends with Roseanne and her family. Trump money to do things for Israel. She says it on stage. Trump says it on stage. But when I say it's anti-Semitism, and the fake opposition Republican Party tries to work against me. So, I pretty much laid out my case here, just to be fair. Double standards don't work. Hate speech rules don't work. This is what's actually happening.
That make a man an offender for a word, and they lay up a snare for him that reproveth in the gate. See, and they have all these they have all these algorithms. They have all the that these systems to track what your word and they say you. So they leave snares. Different words, different traps, different sayings, different ideologies. when these things are true. But at the same time, TikTok promoting a shorty who who tells you openly, I've dated over 30 inmates. I've married 2. I've had 20 CPS called on you. Like you just hit your kid, they'll call you. Not even a bad way, ain't no marks or whatever. They just might be friends. You hit them. They might just go around tearing everything up in the house. And then you lay down that law, you lay down that discipline. They still love you, so you still kicking it. That's still your best friend, right? But that they, you put that fear in them, and then they go run around telling people, oh, that they scared. They call CPS. So you just do some your basic discipline. The CPS get called on you. But they got a woman overweight torta tostada. Tostada deep fried pork on the chips. You know, luring 19-year-old. Dealing with inmates, telling them, oh, my daughter loved her dad, so I was abusing her. If I'm saying that correctly, or something she was jealous of, some type of relationship, but how much the dad loved the child, or how much the child loved the dad, and then she would abuse the child for it. Reproveth at the gate, and turn aside the just for a thing of naught. A lot of people wouldn't be willing to serve the Yahweh Shai Hamashiach, even the heathen, knowing that they couldn't be saved. But that's not the available God in this world.
It's not what Josh Hawley says. It's not what Nikki Haley says. It's not what they say on Fox News. They're telling you the most extreme example, so you're on board with it. Okay. And I'm cooking right now, so I'm not even going to get right into the Ian Carroll and Candace stuff because I have a little bit more to say. But they're using the same exact topics and the same exact talking points, essentially, that they used during the George Bush era, where they said if you disagree with the war, you are a terrorist.
Galatians 4:16. Am I therefore become your enemy because I tell you the truth? And that's what it is. You're the prime enemy of the government, just for speaking.
If you don't like what America's doing, you're a terrorist, and then they call you a terrorist, and then they use that to spy on you, and then they use that to shut you down. It's the same exact thing going on with this war, except people can't figure it out because they think it's so far away that, oh no, it's totally different now. Like it's different than George Bush. Some things are different than George Bush, but they're doing the same exact thing now. They say, well, they're terrorists, so everybody in that country's terrorist. So if we kill tens of thousands of civilians, they're all terrorists anyway, even the women and children, they're all terrorists, so let's kill them. Okay, oh, if anybody disagrees with us, they're terrorists, they're anti-Semites, and they need to be shut down, they need to do this, and that. Oh, somebody says this, they must be aligning with the terrorist organization.
Amos 8:1. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, thy power, the Lord Yahweh, thy power, that I will send a famine in the land, a famine not, or I'll send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but hearing the words of thy Lord. So he gonna cut it off, and this is what's gonna lead to it. Declaring against the enemies and declaring against great kingdoms, man. That's what prophets do.
It's the same thing. To give you a quick example, there's this guy named Sean McGuire who I like a lot of his tweets, but he made a point that makes absolutely no sense, which is something that you'll
Christians love to say false prophet, da 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 da, but they don't read what the Bible tells you for what prophets do.
find to be a recurring topic on this topic is the people that make the least sense just often scream and cry, hate, 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 because they hate the fact that people are smarter and more honest than them. Let's take this tweet because this is so easy to basically counter. It's laughable that these people don't even know this. There's a tweet by Ian Miles Chong. He said, Syria has once again become a war zone as HTA.
Jeremiah 8:28. The prophets that have been before me and before thee of all prophesied both against many nations, against great kingdoms, war, evil, and pestilence. So, this is a very important part of the gospel. You
Insurgents open fire on Alawati homes and Homs. They're murdering people based on their race. Sean McGuire retweeted it and he said, there's a new talking point on the woke right that Israel is a terrorist state while ignoring so much actual terrorism. So he's like James Lindsay and Seth Dillon. They're trying to brand everybody who talks about Israel as the woke right, and all the Zionists and people that never, prioritize that over America. They're the real ones, and everybody else is woke. Like Candace Owens is woke, and Tucker Carlson's woke, and anybody who talks about this is woke. That's what they'll say. They'll even say Joe Rogan is woke sometimes. So let's talk about Syria, right? Because Ian is right. What's going on in Syria is crazy. America and Israel tried to overthrow Bashir al-Assad for
Jeremiah 14:15. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, Yahweh concerning the prophets that prophesy in my name. I have sent them not yet. They say famine. They say sword and famine shall not be in this land. By sword and famine shall those prophets be consumed. So you know, this part of the gospel. These people that those people will be judged, and their nation will be thrown down. They will be severely, smacked up by the other nations, and the Lord will come and he will take out everything.
Over a decade. This wasn't happening as much, especially like a couple years ago when Bashar al-Assad was there. America and Israel, after a decade of trying, got their way recently, and they overthrew the president of Syria and made him flee by funding terrorists or
Isaiah 13:2, lift ye up a banner upon a high mountain, and exalt thy voice unto them. Shake thy hand, that they may go into the gates of the nobles. And that's what we're doing, man. And we will have to be persecuted and testify, and we will. But it's the same way as when the Lord will just put the perfect words on your mouth to speak. Maybe you had some examples. So in your life, that should reassure you when it comes to that time.
say rebel groups. That's what they call them. The Al Qaeda, and then the offshoot was Al Nusra. Now they're calling themselves whatever. That guy said they always change their name and they're affiliated with other groups, but these are the strongest groups on the ground until Tulsi used to talk about it. So the irony of what this guy's saying, if you could even call it irony, is that America and Israel and our allies are the reason that these rebel groups are taking over and killing people. It's like we funded the rebel groups. The rebel groups took over the country. Now the country is in shambles.
Second Peter, see how everybody in the world loved Jesus except the small hats. See, even a sodomite will use Jesus. They hate God, like the average Christian. They hate God and love Jesus. That's funny, huh? How the small hats the reverse to everybody. They allegedly love God. I mean, obviously they don't deal with no God. They're really a non-religious people, but they allegedly love God and they hate Jesus. And the world hates God and loves Jesus. You understand? Because basically Christianity is basically Jesus saved me from God. It saved me from the judgments and all that nonsense and it's all archaic. They basically look at the first half of the book as archaic, and that's what they're being saved from, right? Not necessarily being saved from the law, but they don't keep the law. But in the curses of the law, no, being saved from that are God. In the same time, these small hats openly, at least, they claim to love God and they hate Jesus. But even a sodomite will tell you, oh, God's love, now Jesus is love, Jesus is love, da da da. Why would he want you to kill a sodomite? See, the average person don't believe all love in Jesus would judge a sodomite. He just wasn't in that time for that. A stone of stumbling. First Peter 2:8, a stone of stumbling and rock of offense, they stumble being dishonest to the word to which they were also appointed. First Peter 2:7, therefore to you who believe he is precious, but those who are disobedient, the stone which the builders rejected, he has also become the chief of the cornerstone. The house has a rock of offense. Now at the end of this thing, they're telling you Yahushua the chief anti-Semite, and they'll use the book of Revelation when the Lord was really talking to us. It applies to them now, but he was talking to his people. But when he was called Herod a fox, okay, yeah, he wasn't he's an anti-Edomite, not anti him, because he was a Semitic person, not a Semitic person. The Lord is a Shemitic person. He comes from the chosen line. This passed through Shem, which came through the name. Shem name. Bahashem. To the name, in the name. Job 9:24. The earth is given to the hand of the wicked. He cover up the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where? And who is he? He covered up the faces and he put himself up. He painted his up iconoclasm. Claimed the people, came in as Ottomans. It's a sin to have images.
This happens all the time because, in my opinion, and watch in the next couple of years, Israel's going to take part of the land, Turkey's going to take part of the land, and Syria's probably not even going to exist anymore. We overthrew it.
Ezekiel 26:2, thus saith the Lord thy power, because thine enemy has said against you, aha, even the ancient and high places are ours in possession. Therefore prophesy and say, thus saith the Lord Yahweh thy power, because they have made you desolate and sold you up on every side, that they may be a possession unto the residue of the heathen. Ye are taken up in the lips of talkers and the infamy of the people. Therefore, the mount of Israel hear the word of the Lord Yahweh. That power. Let's say the Lord Yahweh shot that power to the mountains and to the hills and to the rivers, to the valleys, to the desolate ways, to the cities that are forsaken, which become a prey, derision to the residue of the heathen that were round about. Therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, thy power. Surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, against all of Idumea that have appointed my land in their possession, and the joy of their hearts with the spiteful minds cast out a prey. That's the Edomites in the land. You know? Prophesy concerning the mount of Israel, and say unto the mountains, to the hills, to the rivers, and to the valleys, thus saith the Lord, thy power, behold, I spoke in my jealousy and fear, because ye have borne the shame of the heathen.
Terrorists are running rampant on it, and once terrorists run rampant on it and there's no order, someone comes in to establish order. So he's like, why don't the woke right people talk about this? I don't know what you're talking about with woke right, but I've been talking about this for 10 years, what's going on in Syria. And this is a direct result of our foreign policy. How do they not know this? Let's get into the Jeremy Boring post, because Candace Owens went on Theo Vaughn, and Theo Vaughn has been saying a lot of real stuff recently. Ian Carroll went on Joe Rogan. I listened to that podcast. I'll get into it later. I don't want to really talk about it too much now. But the response to them getting podcast appearances is crazy. Here's what Jeremy said. And I'm going to have to break it down in multiple things because it's so long. This is the CEO of Daily Wire. He said, yesterday was a terrible day for American Jews. The embrace by so many prominent voices of demented, conspiratorial, anti-Jewish voices is one of the saddest, most alarming events in my lifetime. This way lies madness, and worse than madness. So he's saying that basically Ian Carroll and Candace Owens getting on a podcast is one of the worst days that he can remember. It's one of the worst events of his lifetime. Not war, not 9/11. I'm sure he thinks that's a bad day too. I'm not trying to put words into his mouth, but it's like the exaggeration of like, this is one of the worst days of my life. What, the person that used to work for your news network went on a big podcast and had a real conversation with Theo Vaughn? Do you notice what these people always do? One, they never debate. I'm sure Candace Owens or one of these people would love to debate Jeremy Boring, would love to.
Joel 3. I will also gather all nations, and I will bring them into the valley of Yehoshaphat, that I will plead of judge with them, for he ain't begging nobody. He will judge them for my people and my heritage, Israel, whom they were scattered among the nations, and parted my land. And also, he's gonna in a valley of Yehoshaphat, in the valley of the Lord's judgment. He exists judgment. He is judgment. He's gonna judge all the heathen. You know, who part of their land, who just fighting. You know, and they shall cast them. I already showed y'all how they enslaved their people. And they shall cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine that might drink. You know, that's what they be having. They'll adopt boys and they'll turn them out. Sodomite, trans, cross-dresser. You know?
Have a conversation and kick around ideas. They never want to do that. They just sit there and say, they're demented, they're crazy, they're conspiracy theorists, they're hateful. It's the same thing the left does. When you talk about anything, the left says, oh, you're just being hateful, you're just being racist, you're a conspiracy theorist, you can't talk about the election, you can't talk about COVID, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're a crazy, kooky, angry conspiracy theorist who wants to hurt people. It's the same thing. If you don't worry.
Luke 21:24, they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and they shall be led captive into all nations. Is a small hat captive of all nations? No, bro. Just even if somebody isn't an Israelite, just based off of color, Esau has put such a vibration into the world that people will oppress their own people who have color, man. Just for the because that mountain just been associated with poverty and low classness. So now when I tell you who was led into all nations, it's obviously us. There's no small head in the poorest, you know. Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until The time of the Gentiles be fulfilled, and that's what happened. The Gentiles are just fighting over, man, but they're being exposed, man. You can't even.
Your mask, you're hurting grandma. If you want to work out at a gym and not sit inside and get fat, you're hurting millions of people. Trump hurt millions of people because he opened the country, but like it's the same exact thing that they do. I don't understand how people don't fall for it. Can any of these people? I was looking at Twitter because there's a lot of stuff going on. Nobody made any point towards anything. It's just like they're crazy, they're hateful. I can't believe they're just hating. And it's
Man, so hope this lesson was edifying. If you wanted to lock into this, watch this, like first 40 minutes, some interesting stuff. Actually, we rant on these wicked ass Christians, man. We need really going to depth into the history of this and to show you how these Christians support these people and all these people do is spit on them. They don't care on them, but because these Christians deny the truth, they deny the truth of the Lord because they reject it because they hate this gospel so much. Even if the gospel brings them condemnation, there's still less condemnation than what they gonna get. They gonna get burned up to a crisp. 6.66666 times hotter than the sun. You know. That might be too cold. It might be 6.666 times hotter than the sun. You know. Super judgment, man. It's gonna lead them to the hell that they ain't got no salvation from, man, because they did not. Lord, imagine. I mean, the Lord blocked them from receiving the truth, but imagine if these Edomites just could accept that we are the true Israelites, man. You know, because they rejected, man. Oh no, this is too evil. We support the small hats in the Holy Land. You know, and look, it's gonna lead to the destruction. It's gonna lead to the no hand laws. How Christianity is not more supportive of people that's gonna get them killed. You know, believe in Jesus will be a death sentence. And this is all just a slower implication of those lies, man. Imagine, and the Lord blocked them from receiving the gospel. But if they accepted that way to the Israelites, regardless of anything else, and they stopped to support the small hats, it would save them. But we will allow the Edomites the judgment that they call upon themselves for rejecting this gospel. But it was all ordained by the Lord. So Barak Yahweh, Barak Yahweh, Barak Yahweh, Barak Yahweh, Call Halom Yahweh Bashem Yahweh.